Watch this.
It's a fresh week and a fresh slate to write history. Ahead on this Monday, we're looking ahead to the KTVB Boise mayoral debate. That's tomorrow. We're touching on who is in the debate and why they qualified. We're also going to talk about the value of debates here in the year 2023. Boise State politics expert Dr. Stephanie Witt joins the show. We're going all in on the election topics today because guess what? Early voting starts today. We've got some tips and some tech tricks to get you ready for Election Day, including for voters in Ada County, who can now see what's going to be on the ballot. Survivors of the atomic weapon detonation in Japan during World War II faced an unthinkable moment in history. One survivor created a friendship with students here at the University of Idaho, and they're now sharing the perspective in a new way while preserving the history of a tough topic to talk about. That's ahead right now on the 208. Hey, thanks for joining us on your Monday. So glad you're with us. Politics season is in full force. The storm is approaching land, so to speak. In fact, tomorrow night, right here on 7, don't change the dial, we are hosting a debate between two of the candidates running to be the mayor of Boise, incumbent Mayor Lauren McLean and retired Boise Police Chief Mike Masterson. Now, those two qualified for our debate using the same campaign finance marks that we've used in past cycles, and it's a question that we've been asked about. Another question I was asked about over the weekend, has KTVB ever done a debate in the Boise mayoral race? And I can tell you, not in the recent past. So we are excited to bring this to you tomorrow. And debates are an interesting format in the sense that it may be the only time that voters get to see the candidates discuss major topics face-to-face, live from their own living room. So for some perspective about the debate and everything going into it, I spoke this afternoon with Boise State political expert Dr. Stephanie Witt. For starters, we're seeing the candidates in a new light tomorrow, TV light.
This will be the first time that we see the candidates on TV. Now, one thing I was wondering, Joe, is will all four candidates be there or just the two main ones?
We're going to have Lauren McLean and Mike Masterson here tomorrow. We have a system that we use based on campaign fundraising, and those are the only two that raised more than $10,000, so they qualified.
Yeah, I think that's a little easier for voters to sort through. I mean, I'm sure that there are people who are fans of each of them, but the two main contenders having some time without the other two will, I think, be different than the other debates that we've had so far.
And I know that there are people in the community that say, it's unfair. We'd like to see all four candidates there. But, at the same time, these are the two candidates that we're getting the most questions about and that are getting the most attention in the community. And realistically, this is who the voters want to see interact.
I agree. I think that certainly it's more inclusive to have all four, but the two most likely to have a chance at winning are Masterson and McLean. So I think it gives voters an extended look at just these two without the other two candidates there.
Curious for your thoughts on the dynamic in the sense that you have the incumbent mayor and you have the challenger, the retired Boise police chief who hasn't been mayor. I mean, that dynamic is very interesting. You have the defense of a record and then you kind of have a here's what I will do.
Well, that's true. I think that, of course, his record while at the police department is relevant. We don't hear as much about that time as we do about what's happened during Lauren's time as mayor. The advantage of being the incumbent is you have better name recognition. You can point to all the programs that you've put forward to. The advantage to being the challenger is while you don't have the name recognition, you can sort of run against any of the decisions that you feel like the sitting mayor has handled poorly or to completely other things that you wish the city would focus on.
What are your thoughts on the value of a debate in 2023?
I'm a little old-fashioned about debates. I still think they're valuable. I think it's a way for voters to hear a candidate explaining in their own words, in their own way, what it is they're about, what their vision is for the city or the office that they're running for. I think the trend that we're seeing where major candidates are just opting out of all debates is going to do some harm. I think it's still a good practice to see how does this person think on their feet? What is it that's important to them and how do they talk about it when they're under pressure? I'm looking to see what distinguishes one candidate from another. What is the difference between this one and that one? And hopefully that will give voters a chance to hear about issues they care about.
And if you'd like to join the debate, it is super easy. You can tune in tomorrow right here on 7 at 6 p.m. for an hour-long debate with no commercial interruptions. You'll be able to watch it again right here on 7, KTVB Plus, KTVB.com. We'll also have some YouTube action for you. And yes, it will be on our website after in case you do miss it. So, yes. Big election topics coming up. Speaking of which, though, today, early in-person voting across the state of Idaho, it kicks off. And the Secretary of State's office reminded us today earlier on social media, for the November 7th election cycle, we are good to go. So from now until November 3rd, you can go ahead and do some early voting. To find out, though, if there's early voting in your county, the easiest way to check is to go to idaho.gov, and idahovotes.gov, and you can click on the ballot listing page there. Now, if you're in Ada County, though, Idaho's most populated county, you're actually in luck because the folks over at the Ada County Clerk's office, again, where the highest concentration of people are really here in the state of Idaho, they have everything set up right here on their website, which is really interactive and it's a really easy way to get through stuff. So we'll link this page, and we actually, if you just search the Ada County election website, it's super easy. You can look at your ballot right there. And we'll go full screen here. As you click on the View Your Ballot, you can actually get this page. It'll launch right up in the top left here. You put in your exact location, and then you go ahead here. You can see the sheet here. You can see exactly where your polling place is, exactly where everything goes. And then there on the ballot, yep, you can start to see some of the action there. And one of the things we've talked about, the Ada County jail bond. Yes, so that's going to be on the ballot for a lot of people across Ada County. And voters in Ada County will get to say whether they should expand the jail or not. And we've seen all your questions about this. What does it mean? Well, the proposed bond that is going to be on your ballot if you're in Ada County, it's for $49 million. And the money will be for an expansion project that will add 294 beds to the county jail, as well as expanding the kitchen and the laundry facilities, as well as the warehouse. The Ada County Sheriff right now, Matt Clifford, he tells our team that they have to put inmates on cots and on the floor because the dorms, they're very crowded. They need more space. And they also tell us the kitchen, for example, it was designed to cook about 1,000 meals a day. Well, Clifford says 4,000 meals are now coming out of that kitchen. The sheriff also tells us that the warehouse is too small. So the jail, they've started to have to use other buildings to store their things, including locations outside of the jail, which can make things more difficult. Big question out there, though. Is it just time? Well, it's up to you. But to answer that question, the jail was originally built in the 1970s. The last major expansion to the Ada County Jail was in 2003. So for this measure to pass, it will need 2/3 of voters in the county to vote in favor, in the affirmative. So 66%, 2/3. If it does pass, the resolution will cost the average homeowner in Ada County a little more than $13 a year, and that would be for the next 20 years on the bond. Again, Ada voters, you can go look at the ballot in full if you want to preview.
Not everybody likes beer and wine. Maybe they want a cocktail with dinner. Well, they're not going to come here.
Okay, well, outside of Ada County, how about an interesting ballot item in Middleton? They're trying to say goodbye to a dry city. Yep, that's still happening in 2023. Right now, Middleton bars and restaurants, they can only sell beer and wine. It's because of a vote in 1947 to make Middleton a dry city. So fast forward 76 years and over 1,000 signatures later on a petition from the Middleton Liquor by the Drink group. Well, they got the item on this year's ballot. You might have heard about this campaign. If it is voted through, then any location with a liquor license can sell liquor in addition to beer and wine. Turning now to something that we've been following for a while, and we see your comments and questions all the time, the latest developments out of the West Bonner County School District, specifically the school board. Late last month, Superintendent Brandon Durst, he announced his intent to resign, but the former Democratic lawmaker left when that might be in the hand of the Board of Trustees. The update is we don't have one yet because school board trustee Troy Reinbold has not been able to show up to the meetings, and they've had to cancel them because of a lack of quorum. He's attended one of the 5 scheduled meetings since the recall that happened 41 days ago up there, and the one he did attend was over the phone. He had to pull over on the side of the road, and that was the meeting where they had the amended agenda, and they had to ditch a lot of it, including dealing with Brandon Durst. Remember this?
I'm soaking wet and covered in mud and trying to get home.
Okay, all right.
I just want to, if all my business is taken care of, I'd just as soon.
So the latest meeting was last Tuesday. Interim Chair Margaret Hall and Superintendent Durst, they sent out a message to the community on email and on social media to the district community saying that they had to cancel both the special and the regular meetings for late Tuesday and Wednesday. And they wrote that it was because that Trustee Reinbold, he had a family emergency and that he requires privacy at this time. As simple as that. So please know that as soon as possible, the board will reschedule these special meetings, the letter said, and the regular meeting. So nothing can happen until he shows up to the meeting, and that means Durst is still the superintendent. He has an intention to leave, but, they have to take care of business. For now, the West Bonner County Sheriff is being brought in to investigate a criminal complaint about Trustee Reinbold's absences. Detective Sergeant at the Sheriff's Office told our sister station in Spokane that, quote, "We're definitely looking into it, and it does appear that there's a crime here. A possible crime, according to the Idaho Code Commission of Public Duty, which says in part, quote, every willful omission to perform any duty enjoined by law upon a public officer or person holding any public trust or employment where no special provision shall be made for the punishment of such delinquency is punishable as a misdemeanor." And according to public meeting laws, they have to meet once a month. So we'll see when they get October's on the calendar and when the trustee's able to show up. You may remember back in September, they went down to the wire. The use of the atomic bomb changed the course of history, the first and only time a nuclear weapon was utilized as an act of war. For the survivors of the bombing in Japan, they faced a fallout that nobody could imagine. One of those survivors is now closely connected with students at the University of Idaho. Andrew Bartline has their story. Well, it is a happy Monday. I'm glad you made it through your workday and hope you enjoyed your weekend. But looking ahead to this week, what's going on out there? We love to hear from you. Text us your feedback, comments on these stories, and really anything. Our number, 208-321-5614. Please be sure to include your name and hashtag the 208. We're going to get to some of these live at the end of the show.
I want to share what I saw, what I felt, what I smelled those days. I am a witness of Hiroshima survivors.
She's one of very few people left who can testify to firsthand what happened with the atomic bomb dropped on Hiroshima on August 6, 1945. It's estimated the United States bomb killed more than 100,000 Japanese civilians. The woman who you just heard from, Keiko Ogura, she was just 9 years old when the atomic weapon hit. And since surviving the war, she's been vocal about the inhumane horrors caused by a nuclear blast. And just a year ago, she shared that story directly with college students at the University of Idaho. It's a good time now to bring in Andrew Bartline because today, well, we heard that story again here in Boise, but we're now hearing it through a different lens.
Yeah, and that's through these students that have befriended Keiko in a sense, right, Joe? And it's no coincidence that these 5 students from the University of Idaho are also studying the Japanese language while at university. And they've spent the last year translating Keiko's book into English. It's her firsthand account and even visiting with her back in Hiroshima. And these students are now in Idaho's capital city today from Moscow to share the gravity of this project, and they even set some time aside for us.
Pictures
It's history.
after the bombing
Few living today
for other
can testify.
survivors.
But Kiko Agura,
Then I'll tell you what happened
she remembers nearly 8 decades later.
on 6th of August. My father said, Keiko, you shouldn't go to school.
And she didn't,
This photo,
because Kiko,
I was under this mushroom cried.
a Hiroshima survivor, now a teacher today,
Yes.
Yeah.
We were actually sitting in the classroom.
impressing upon Andrea Golden
Yes.
and Madison Buckles.
She is very, very involved in a lot of the politics surrounding nuclear warfare.
When she came here, she also stopped by to our classroom and she presented a kamishibai, and she asked us to translate it for her so that she can share it to more parts of the world. It's a style of storytelling, and it literally translates to a paper theater. On the back of each slide, we have the kind of story that we read. So it's very focused on the visual storytelling with the pictures, and it's much more emphasized on that.
And much more powerful
I think so.
than just words
This one right here. Okay, that's where we'll start.
on a blank page.
When Keiko left, the burn victims were walking down the road in front of the house. 1, 2, 3 lines. The number of people were increasing. They walked in rows, burnt arms outstretched. And then, nothing like this.
At that time, they were told not to give water to the burn victims. Keiko, being so young, didn't know that. I didn't give them any either, Keiko lied. After realizing her mistake, the death of those 2 people became an unforgettable incident for Keiko.
Is there symbolism in that? What should somebody get from this story?
I think the symbolism there is that we only see half of the story. We only see the part from the American side. We don't see what actually happened to each individual person in Hiroshima and the death that they witnessed at the hands of what we did.
Before this, I had that previous knowledge that was just very, very watered down or just very simplified.
Obviously, it's a totally different alphabet, but there's a lot of words that not a word in English. It kind of is, but not really.
There's definitely times where our class was very split 50-50, doing a literal translation or doing a more figurative translation. We went through, I think almost 3 or 4 edits of our translation before we were okay, we're confident and comfortable putting this out.
Those students presented that translation in whole today with Keiko at the Idaho Water Center in downtown Boise. About less than an hour ago, these students admitted that they had some nerves going into this, but mostly they were just excited. And part of what we talked about as well, Joe, is translating something can be very difficult. There are words in Japanese that maybe don't exactly exist in English. And so that's kind of an interesting part too, is kind of what they were talking about for a moment there.
In these firsthand accounts and really the translations out of them, or the secondhand account because of the language barrier, those are things that the world will lose as time goes on. Most commonly, I remember hearing it with Holocaust victims of, you need to hear their story from them because there will be a point where there are no more Holocaust victims or no more World War II veterans or no more survivors of the atomic weapon. And these stories that you hear, it gives you such a perspective that it's hard to understand because we weren't there for it.
Yep.
But to think about in the context of where we are today and how everything's the worst thing that ever happened, when you look back, we've never in our lifetime seen a nuclear explosion.
Yeah, and that firsthand experience, right? People don't live forever. And so when you have that story, literature can be very powerful in that sense. Translating it into another language, in this sense, English, it helps people understand that on a more, I think, direct basis when it comes straight from the horse's mouth, per se.
Yeah.
So that's really the value with that. And these students are really proud to be a part of it.
You were saying Keiko was 9 years old when that happened in Japan?
Yep.
Unbelievable. College kids in 2023 telling the story. All right, 208 rolls on right after this break.
up around the Ketchum area, and a beautiful area, of course, that it is here in Idaho. Many spots that we know of. Now, let me just start talking about sunset times, okay? Now, you know, this is the time of year. I mean, we've got the storm coming in and different things. Things are going to change quite quickly. Just to let you know or be aware of it as it comes along. We're going to be losing our evenings pretty much, especially by the time we get to November 5th. So it's only a couple of weeks away. And that's, of course, the time change. And the sunset's going to be at 5:30. And between that time to December 21st, which is still quite a little bit of time, sunset on the 21st will be at 5:10. So that's going to be losing our evenings through there. From the beginning of January, we start gaining some of the evenings back. This is by March 18th, but it is March 18th, and the sunset is at 7:55, and then June 21st, it's 9:30. So the sunshine returns, likely about the very end of February and the first part of March. So for now, as we look at temperatures this evening, it's a nice evening to be outside. Temperatures will be in the 50s though very late tonight. We've got another cold night as the low temperature drops down about 41 degrees or so for tomorrow morning. Cold air is up around the Seattle area. They're getting some showers. Same thing for Portland. And that's what's eventually moving into our area. So Boise today did have a 67, making it for a pretty nice day. Here's the 10-day temperature trend, which just gives you an idea of what we're expecting out of this. First of all, tomorrow's 64. Not a bad day there. Clouds will increase probably about 2, 3 o'clock in the afternoon. Some showers very late in the evening that last through Wednesday. Wednesday could be getting some rain around here as much as 1/4 inch. It dries up on Thursday, but leaves us with some cold temperature. These are highs. They're not the lows. These are the highs, okay? As you get into Sunday and Monday of next week, you see 47, 48, and then it does start to rise just a little bit as it gets up to 56 degrees. So as you look at the lows, now here are the low temperatures over the next 10 days, and you can see some of those lows getting very, very cold as we promised and talked about last week. Big change in our weather. That's going to be coming up, and it's just happening in the next couple of days. So when you look at the situation for this evening, see the temperatures dropping off, and then you see those clouds start to increase in the afternoon. Like I said, probably around 3 o'clock or so. And in the way of rain amounts, this is what we have for forecast rain. So I'm going to run this ahead, and you're going to see by the time we get to Wednesday morning, there's a pretty good amount of rain. There could be 1/4 inch of rain or more from Wednesday, very early in the morning into Wednesday evening. So that's that 80% chance of rain on Wednesday. As temperatures come down, they stay down for the rest of the week.
All right, let's get to some of your comments. Pretty good, Justin. We'll work on it. All right, technically, being able to serve beer and wine does not constitute a dry area. Alcohol is alcohol. Beckett, you make a good point. That is a good point. So I guess specifically when we're talking about dry, we're talking about liquor. But yes, good point. All right, this person says, is there a place to see what money is behind candidates? Thanks, Barbie in Boise. Yes, Barbie, if you go to ktvb.com, search Campaign Finance Boise Mayor, you can see a link to the Secretary of State page, and you can also see some of the money that's coming in. And then this person sent us some feedback on the Boise mayoral debate, telling us that they're excited to see the candidates tomorrow. We also thank the candidates ahead of time for showing up because there's been a lot of major candidates that won't do debates. We also saw your criticism on the two candidates being in our debate. That is your opinion. Totally appreciate the feedback. Okay, again, tomorrow, 6 p.m., the mayoral debate, 208 at 5. We'll see you tomorrow.